It is 1949. You're in the desert of Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. Every major oil company on earth has passed on this deal. The concession rights to the so called neutral zone between Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. Shell passed, BP passed. The majors laughed it off as barren sand with no commercial viability. But one man didn't laugh. J. Paul Getty wrote a check for $9.5 million in upfront payments, a fortune at that time, for land that might have nothing underneath it. Everyone called him a fool. 4 years later, they struck oil, and J. Paul Getty became the richest man in human history. This wasn't gambling, this was grandiose genius. Hello, I'm Todd Hagopian, the original stagnation assassin. Today, we're opening the vault on J. Paul Getty's 1949 Middle East oil expansion, one of the most audacious business gambles ever made. And we're going to see if it's a strategic slaughter or a stagnation suicide. When every expert says don't, sometimes your only move is to go all in. The stagnation score here, the pre move oil industry, was 7 out of 10 for corporate cancer. The quote unquote Seven Sisters, the dominant oil cartel of the mid 20th century, had the industry locked in a stranglehold. They controlled production, they controlled distribution, they controlled pricing. They were fat, comfortable. They had carved up the Middle East among themselves like a Thanksgiving turkey, leaving the scraps for anyone foolish enough to try and come in and buy some sand. That is textbook institutional rot. And when incumbents stop competing and they start colluding, stagnation just doesn't set in. It becomes the business model. The majors were so busy protecting their existing concessions that they couldn't see opportunity staring them right in the face. So let's look at the tactical audit. Getty deployed two frameworks with devastating precision: the 80-20 matrix of profitability, while the Seven Sisters were spread across dozens of global concessions, managing bureaucracies and political relationships on every single continent. Getty identified the single highest upside play on the board: one concession, one region, one massive bet. He didn't diversify his risk, he concentrated it on the vital opportunity that the vampire many of safe incremental plays would never deliver. Let's look at orthodoxy smashing innovation. The sacred cow of the oil industry in 1949 was that independents could not compete in the Middle East. It was too complex, it was too political, it was too expensive. Getty demolished that orthodoxy. He offered the Saudi government dramatically better terms than the majors ever had, including a $9.5 million upfront payment and a higher royalty rate. He innovated on the deal structure, not the drilling technology. While the majors were competing on engineering, Getty was competing on economics and relationship building. And here's the Karelin method in action. Getty didn't just bid, he moved to the Middle East. He spent years personally overseeing operations in the desert. He applied relentless, unconventional force to a problem everyone else had already dismissed. When the first wells came up dry, he didn't retreat. He drilled again, and then he drilled again. For 4 years, he burned cash in the desert while the world watched and laughed. That's not patience, that's predatory persistence. But let's look at the hindsight homicide. Getty's fatal flaw: human capital catastrophe. The man was a brilliant dealmaker, but a disastrous leader of people. He was legendarily cheap. He installed a payphone in his mansion for guests. He had 5 failed marriages. His relationships with his children were tragic. The kidnapping of his grandson exposed a pathological inability to value human life over financial assets. Getty proved that you can win the market war and absolutely lose the human war simultaneously. His corporate legacy is brilliant. His personal legacy is a cautionary tale. And in the long run, the companies that outlasted Getty Oil were the ones that invested in culture, people, succession, all the things that Getty ended up ignoring. The stagnation assassin takes no pleasure in that diagnosis, but the hot system demands it. The verdict, I'm giving J. Paul Getty's Middle East expansion 4 out of 5 kills. So much promise, but only 4. On pure tactical execution, this is obviously a 5. The man identified a generational opportunity, ignored every expert, committed fully, endured years of failure, and emerged as the richest human being alive. That is legendary execution on the business battlefield. But a stagnation assassin built systems, not empires of one. Getty's inability to build sustainable human infrastructure cost him that 5th kill. Strategy without succession is just a delayed funeral. So that's the autopsy. J. Paul Getty won the Desert War, but lost the Dynasty War. If you want to build something that outlasts you, head to toddhagopian.com. Grab the unfair advantage and visit stagnationassassins.com for the world's largest stagnation database. Continue to declare war on stagnation with us here every week. Thank you.